Yeah, if they're traveling, then it's got to be a lot of coordination. You really need someone to handle all that stuff.
The software, you can have two luggage, so they have one luggage and one. The numbers also luggage for the props and the costume.
That's pretty cool. So who wrote it originally, Mrs. Feldman?
So this one is kind of a repeat every other year.
Yeah, Leah was telling me.
They tweak it. And then the other year, you know, the one of last year. The one we do is the point that we do the one of the.
I thought they do that every year. They do that every other year.
Every other year.
So this is the year they're doing it.
No, so this year it's for Z.
But next year will be-
Also more one, but next year.
Got it. Okay. So I'm going to probably head back over quickly to good morning. Back over to the hallway to room.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Oh, we got a lot of people here online waiting to get in. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Boker
I feel like
Tov.
Leslie has time in her schedule.
Hey, everybody.
She's gonna help me with reading.
Good morning. Good morning.
That's good.
Hey, Boker Tov.
Great, Andrea, are the music there? You around here? No, my little semester. Oh, really? Well, what did you do? Got it. Okay. So I just wanted to. Wow, who are you staying with? I drove here. This morning? Wow. Okay, so you didn't rise. Yes. Oh, well, so I did it. Do you go to any place in Nashville?
No, I have visited, someplace in Nashville that is not, we have one place not. And, I, and I'm not usually Jewish, but I believe I'm Jewish. And I've been,
So you're going through the process?
I'm like in the beginning of it.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah, my grandma, her second husband was Jewish, and he was I lived with them, he raised me, and my grandma was American. So,
Have you ever looked into her background with being an author?
I would have to go to Europe to find out, and ask my family, we just said,
Got it.
so.
Well, you should go on your journey. That's a good journey.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm studying, and then, I want to make sure that it's, one way. It's a big step, it's a one-way road, it's no way back. So, it's.
Are you in Nashville by yourself? Yeah.
No, I have family members. They are not very supportive of
Right.
my
Journey.
journey. Apology.
Have you been online before? Oh,
But not on Zoom. I watched on YouTube.
Right.
so you wouldn't start coming furthest for this class, yeah? From Nashville this morning.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Welcome.
Very impressive.
That is very impressive. Wow, Nashville. Yeah, that's a hike. That is a hike. What brings you to town?
I've been watching classes online, so I just wanted to visit in person.
Super cool. Watching our classes?
Yes.
Nice.
It's working, Rabbi.
How cool is that? Yes.
And this class is not on YouTube.
Yeah, I haven't posted them on YouTube yet. Oh, this is amazing. Hold on. Wow. Holy cow. Wow.
Just came around the corner.
And your name is Andrea? Andrea, welcome. So Andrea's, can I just mention this for our online crew? So Andrea's been watching on YouTube, Kabbalah classes on YouTube, and she pointed out that and you live in Nashville or somewhere in Tennessee? South of Nashville. And I haven't posted yet these Kabbalah Cafe classes on YouTube, although they're recorded, because I haven't posted them yet. So Andrea just drove down from Tennessee to be here in person. That's awesome. Yeah, I know. No pressure now, right? Yeah. All right. That's great. Great to see everybody here. See that? Right. You can leave early morning, drive here, get here on time. Boom. The time change is already working. All right, let's jump in. Hey, Norm. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. All right, let's we have a lot to talk about today. And it's Sunday morning. This is the perfect time to talk about these types of things. Let's mention our online crew: Susan and Ray and Joy and Sarah and Fran and Alex and Mariana. Welcome. Mariana, you still win the longest distance virtual tune-in all the way from Santiago, Chile. So welcome.
Yeah.
Right,
Hi. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks for being here. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kabbalah Cafe. So the topic this week is Jewish meditation. And I think, here's what I think. I think that a lot of us don't necessarily associate meditation with Judaism. In fact, most of us associate meditation with Eastern traditions, Eastern, kind of like Eastern philosophy, Eastern spirituality, and not necessarily Judaism. I once heard this from an Australian rabbi / mystic Kabbalist. His name is Rabbi Label Wolf, who is just a wonderful speaker. Rabbi Label Wolf told me the following story. He lives in Melbourne, and he was, I don't remember where he said he was. It was Friday afternoon. He was hanging out somewhere, or he was shopping or something, and he hears two young men speaking Hebrew. So he starts speaking to them in Hebrew, and he finds out what their names are and what they're doing. And they basically told him the following story. They said that they had just recently finished their army service in Israel, and they were kind of touring. They went to the Far East, and now they were in Australia, and that was that. And they were telling him how, they were having all these experiences and all these interesting experiences. He invites them over for Friday night dinner, for Shabbat dinner. They're over at the house, and they, as he continues the conversation with them, they're almost gushing about their, just in complete joy and excitement about their experience in the where would it have been, in the Tibet or Himalayas, whatever, like in the places where they were had all these spiritual experiences, and they were learning all these spiritual things. Hi, Marie. Good to see you. And so Rabbi Wolf asked them, so tell me, so what did you learn? What are you so impressed about? What was so impressive? And they begin telling him all the ideas that they learned, and all the spirituality they gained. And so he said, interesting. He goes over to his bookshelf and he pulls out books of Kabbalah and Hasidic philosophy, right? And they could read Hebrew. So he showed them how we have this in our tradition. So what they say to him, they said, oh, we never knew that they translated that in Hebrew. Right. So the point is, it's not a translation. There's a Jewish tradition here that we have. I don't know if I mentioned David online. David, Good to see you as well. All right, so here's the deal. Judaism has a very rich meditative tradition. You know, there's a joke that goes that the Zen master walks over to the hot dog stand in New York. You guys know this one, right? He says, "Make me one with everything." Yeah. And so the hot dog vendor does. And the fellow gives him, the Zen master gives him a 10. And the guy pockets it. He says, "Where's the change?" And what does the hot dog stand guy say? Change comes from within. Anyway, so that's two can play at this game, right? Two can play at the philosophical, spiritual game. They also tell another story about the Jewish Rabbi who travels all the way to the Himalayas. She's looking for the guru, and so they tell her the guru is at the top of the mountain and inaccessible. The guru is engaging in like the silent meditation, silent meditation, and that's it. You can't, no access. She says, "I must see the guru." I say, "You can't." She says, "I demand it." Then, you know,
Magnesium.
Jewish Bubby, so she gets her way. So eventually they take her up. She goes by ox cart. She goes this way. She goes that way. It's by foot, by donkeys. Who knows? The Sherpas are involved. So eventually she gets up to, who knows? When in doubt, throw out the Sherpa. So not throw out, but so she eventually arrives. She eventually gets there, and they say to her, "You can only say 3 words," because he's engaged in silent meditation. He can't respond. She says, "Okay, I got 3 words. Sheldon, come home." Anyway, so that's the story. Meditation has a very strong Jewish foundation, but I want to explain some differences between Jewish meditation and Eastern meditation. And if you've ever done yoga, or if you've ever engaged in any sort of classic, maybe popular meditative practices, it's probably of the Eastern variety. It's probably that style of meditation. Jewish meditation differs. I'll give you a very short primer on Jewish meditation, and it's all based on the 10 sefirot, the 10 energies that not only run through the fabric of the universe, but also are in our souls. And this is something that we speak about very often in Kabbalah, and that is that each of us, we have a soul, and the soul is comprised of 10 energies, 10 centers of power, of energy, of ability that we have. There are 3 cognitive and 7 emotive. The 3 cognitive are Chachma, Bina, and Dat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. That's usually the way it's translated. My translation is intellectual conception, intellectual comprehension, and intellectual connection. Those are the 3 intellectual capacities that we have. And then we have 7 emotional capacities. Chesed, which is kindness. Gvura, discipline. Tiferet, compassion. Netzach, ambition. Hod, humility. Yesod, relationship, the ability to connect. And Malchut, leadership. We have these 7 abilities, emotional and functional abilities, in addition to the 3 intellectual. But the big idea, and if you've ever seen the the chart of Sefirot, they're usually depicted as kind of like orbs, like circles, with one on the right, one on the left, and one beneath it in the center. It's like right, left, center. Now, in mystical language, that is called the partzuf. Partzuf also means face or visage. It's face. Why is that depiction of the sphere called the face? Think about the face. You have 2 eyes and a nose, right? That's the balance of the face. You have a right eye. That's my left eye, but to you, it's my right? You have the right eye, the left eye, and the nose right beneath it in the center. Right, left, center. Right, left, center. And then center, center, right, left, center, and then center. Those are your 10 energies. It's interesting. Kabbalah speaks about a world before ours, or a dimension of reality before ours. It's the world of tohu. Has anybody heard of the world of tohu before? Not tofu. That's something else. Tohu vavohu. Yeah. The beginning of the Torah, it says, the world was tohu vavohu, empty and void. But Kabbalah says, you know what tohu is? Tohu is a world of chaos. It's a world of abject chaos. In the language of the mystics, the light was big and the vessels were small. It's kind of like in the realm of ideas. If you have too big of an idea, imagine if Albert Einstein walked into a third grade classroom and taught the theory of relativity. That would be intense, right? The children might not be able to grasp it if he taught it on his level, right? If he taught it, if Einstein teaches on his level to a bunch of kids, they're not going to get anything. That's also true, right? I'm just creating a safe space by referencing the children. You're right. We wouldn't understand it either, most likely, unless he really brought it down to very simplistic terms. If he's speaking on his level, it's way up there. When you have too much light and not enough vessel to contain the light, I don't mean literal light and vessel, but conceptual light and vessel. The idea is big and the mind, the brain is not yet trained. It's too small. Then it's not going to go in. The information is not going to go in. On the contrary, it might confuse the individual, the student. So it's kind of like, I don't know, we use a styrofoam cup as an example. This is great if you want to contain, this is not an environmental conversation, but anyway, this is great to contain water that dispenses slowly from a hot water thing over there, right? Hot water goes into the cup. However, if you had like a fire hose, is that what it's called, a fire hose? Yeah. And you try to fill up this cup with a fire hose, you know what's going to happen to the cup? Not only is it not going to contain anything, it's going to shatter. So Kabbalah, the Arizal speaks about this. The great mystic in the 1500s, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria. So he says that before our reality existed a world called Olam HaTohu, the world of Tohu, of chaos. And in that world, that realm was marked by big light, a lot of energy, not enough vessel to contain the light. The vessel shattered. And that precipitates our world, which is known, by the way, as the world of Tikkun. You ever hear the phrase Tikkun Olam? Yeah, that's not just a call to, be nice, or in the language of Blockbuster, be kind, rewind. Remember that? Be kind, rewind. From a literally different generation. The kids now, Blockbuster. I remember, by the way, once I was in a Blockbuster. This was in Brooklyn. And I remember thinking to myself, this is very inefficient, right? Everyone's standing in line, and you know what my thought was? This was my thought, like, they should have machines and kiosks. Dr. Gordon, good to see you. Welcome. Come on in. All right. I thought to myself, imagine if they created a kiosk, you can type in your movie and it would spit out the DVD. This is right. That was my idea. Let alone streaming. Like that wasn't even in my, that was like, let's make a more efficient CD delivery system. That's like, you talk about like iteration, you talk about like evolution versus revolution. That was like, let's just make a little bit of a better mousetrap. But Netflix took it to a whole new level. It's like, we're not going to do, they start off with mailing out DVDs, right? We're going to mail you a DVD. How inefficient in retrospect. It's like, I want it instant. I'm going to wait 2 days. Who has 2 days? Redbox. They still have that. Well, that is, okay. So Redbox is on demand. Yeah. We're not going to knock Redbox. But yeah, that was my idea, basically. Redbox should be paying that. Now that you mention it, that was actually my idea. Turns out Redbox took my idea. Anyway, but back to the story. So the world, how do we get there? Oh, be kind, rewind, tikkun. There we go. All right, we're just retracing. Thank God I left the breadcrumbs to be able to make my way back to the yellow brick road, as it were. So back to the story. So the world that we exist in is the world called tikkun, olam ha-tikkun. Our job is tikkun olam. In fact, repairing the world. What does that mean spiritually? It means collecting all the shards of the broken vessels of Tohu, which have residual light in them, and form the basis of our reality, and reconnecting them with their source. Everything that we do, everything that we eat, everything that we step into in this physical world has a potential spark, and our job is to reclaim it, to separate it out from the negativity, from the potential negativity of it, and uplift it back to a holy space. And thus, that is the idea of tikkun. Basically, it's picking up the pieces of a shattered realm. That's our job. L'taken olam, to fix the world. So the origins of tikkun olam, repairing the world, are very mystical. It's been, again, not in a bad way, it's all good. Anything that anyone does to make the world a better place is definitely good. But it has been co-opted in a different space, in a good space, but in a different space. The original space is literally about doing spiritual things with the physical world around us, thus lifting up the sparks. Okay, back to the story. So we have a world of tohu, where the lights are big, the vessels are small. And the way that's understood in Kabbalah is that it's lacking the partsuf. Remember I told you about the partsuf before, the face, right, left, center? It's lacking the balance. Each energy in the world of tohu was amplified. And in a world of amplification, a world in which every energy is 100%, it doesn't give room for any other voice. Imagine you walk into a room, let's use the same number 10. There are 10 people, and they're all speaking to each other, but each one is speaking at top volume, not listening to each other, right? What's that going to sound like? Politics. I'm kidding. No, what's that going to sound like? It's going to sound crazy, right? It's going to sound mashugga. No one's listening. There's no dialogue. There's no communication. Nothing will get done because everyone is sharing their opinion full blast. In order to have an actual conversation and dialogue, you need to have give and take. One person speaks, the other one listens, the third one shares also, right? It's about a collaboration. In the world of tikkun, there is collaboration. You have the partsuf. The sphirot energies are divided, right, left, and center. There's a center column there to balance the right and the left. So you have chesed, which says give. Gvura says 1 second. Tiferet says, let's make a compromise. So you have this ability to compromise because you're dealing with a balanced structure. Whereas in the world of tohu, the world of chaos, the way the mystics explain, chaos is so amplified. Sorry, the energies are so amplified. Good morning. They're not working together. And because they're not working together, there's abject chaos. All the hard questions I give to you. No, I'm kidding. No. You're good.
But the AI.
Oh, good. That AI thing is actually remarkable. All right, we'll speak about that today. Also, at some point, we'll work it in. All right, so back to the story. I was reading this yesterday. It's unbelievable. The twin brothers, Yaakov and Esav, Jacob and Esau. Jacob represents tikkun, and Esau represents tohu. Esau is a wild guy because his energy. Again, imagine all the channels are cranked up 100%. It's chaos. By the way, chaos channeled correctly, like high energy channeled correctly, is the most incredible thing. If Esau would have been able to somehow channel his intense energies, he could have done greater things than even Jacob. But there's volatility there. And with the volatility, things can break. That's the way it happens sometimes. With great volatility comes great possibility for fracturing and splitting. And so Esau ultimately wasn't able to harness his energies. Jacob is more of a tikkun fellow. He's more of an established guy. You know, if you think about it in the context of product development, so you would have the creative mind and then the engineer. And this is something that we speak about very often, example that I use very often in Kabbalah. So imagine you have an architect. The architect says, okay, we're going to build the most magnificent building tower that anyone's ever seen. It's going to be like, I don't know how many feet are, how big is the tallest building? A few thousand feet? Does that sound right? Tallest building in the world?
I think about 1,500 feet.
1,500 feet? Imagine this architect says, we're going to build something 5,000 feet. Really skinny, right? 5,000 feet up in the air. It's going to be amazing. It's going to look magnificent. Glass and steel and beautiful. And draws it because it's easy to, just create something on the computer. And then gives it to the engineer. The engineer says, can't build this. You kidding me? I mean, we can build it. It's not going to stand. There's no way to. So you have a conflict. You have a tension between a creative, like a wild idea, and then actual execution. You know Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes? Yeah, right. It's just her buddy just got 13 years in prison now last week. Sonny, whatever his last name was. So she's had a startup. She was in Stanford. She left Stanford and she created the startup. And her dream, her vision was to create a little machine that could take a little drop of blood or two, right, and run all these tests and be able to diagnose all sorts of things from just like one drop of blood. Never been done before. And turns out, can't be done. But here's the thing. She had a wild vision. And she was hoping, this is my belief. It's true or not, I believe that she was hoping that with enough money and investment, and by her, talking it up enough, saying we can do it, we can do it, we can do it, that it'll eventually get done. I think she ran out of time. Now, will it ever get done? I don't know, but I also know to never say never. I think it's a mistake to say it can't be done. It can't be done. There are a lot of things that we thought couldn't be done that got done. A lot of things that are pretty remarkable. We sent something to Mars. We sent a rover to Mars. That's wild. So we can figure out stuff. We're smart. We can figure out things. We can get it done. So can that get done? I'm going to say probably. She didn't get it done, and she overpromised, underdelivered, and she said things that weren't true, or whatever it is. We're not going to retry it right here. The point is, sometimes you have a big vision, but the kalim, the vessels, aren't there. You don't have the ability to build it out. You don't have the tools to actually make it happen. So again, the way the mystics understand the story of Yaakov and Esau, of Jacob and Esau, is Esau has the intense energy, but he doesn't have the tools to channel it in a healthy way, and it's devastatingly chaotic. Whereas Jacob has a lot of vessels, The light, all right, he's working on the light, but he's got everything built out. The ultimate would be the joining together, which is how the mystics explain yesterday's Torah portion. How Jacob sends a message to his brother to find out how he's doing. What he's really doing is finding out if they're ready to join forces. His light and his vessels, his creativity, his genius, along with his, getting things done, his engineering ability, as it were. And I don't mean literally, but I mean metaphorically. Anyway, it didn't work out. They weren't ready yet to join up. But ultimately, the purpose in life is to join the big lights with the broad vessels. To explain this mystically, I'll share the following. Kabbalah teaches that before the world was created, it was just God. And in that space of God, nothing else can exist. Imagine a blinding light. You can't see anything in the light, right? If the light's too bright, you can't see anything, paradoxically. You need light to see, but too much light, now you can't see. So when the divine light, when it was God, just God and his infinite light, well, infinite implies taking up all the space. So there was no space for anything else to exist. So the mystics tell us that what happens, God kind of removes his light, or condenses, tzimtzum, right? Condenses the light and gives space for otherness to exist. Imagine somebody walks into a room and they dominate the space. They walk into a dinner party and they dominate the room. Right? And they take over the conversation. Okay. So how do you allow other people to converse? If you shrink a little bit, right? If that person stops talking and gives space. So Hashem, God, gives space for us to exist. So at this point, that's where we exist, right? We exist in the space of tzimtzum, in the space of divine contraction and concealment. God kind of withdraws and allows us to emerge. Which means, sounds like it's an either or. Either God is fully present and we don't exist, or God is not fully present, as it were, and we do exist. What's the ultimate? To mix metaphors, what's the Holy Grail? Sorry, right? What's the ultimate? The ultimate is to have the full presence of Hashem, to have the full divine light, and to have us enjoy it. How's that possible? The big lights with the big vessels, the lights of Tohu with the vessels of Tikkun. This is the mystical, this is the end game. This is what Mashiach is according to Kabbalah. It's when you have the big light, the full presence of Hashem, of God, and we're able to see it and still exist. That's like the ultimate. Us human beings, the world still exists, and yet the divine reality is absolutely apparent. Getting back to meditation. So first of all, this is a lot of ideas that you can meditate on, but let's just describe what meditation is for a moment. We went through the 10 Sefirot, and the way they're described in the parts of the way they are depicted in this visage, in this image of the energies, is that you have right, left, center. There's balance, right, left, center, and there's a hierarchy. At the top exists the intellectual powers, and beneath it, the emotional and functional powers. And there's a reason for this hierarchy. And the reason is because the way the mystics understand the human being, the human soul, it's that our intelligence, our mind has the ability to guide the heart. In the language of Kabbalah, moach shalit al halev b'toldato. A human being by nature has the control of the mind over the heart. The mind controls the heart. Now, is it possible to relinquish that control? Absolutely. But by nature, the way we are created, the mind has a natural guidance ability over the heart. This is at the heart. This is at the core of Jewish meditation. Jewish meditation is thinking about something. Here's a definition of Jewish meditation: to think about something long enough and hard enough until you produce the desired emotional response. In fact, we all meditate, even when we don't know it. So here's an example. Example that I once heard from Rabbi Taub. You're driving down the street, and maybe you're in traffic, maybe you're on the highway, whatever it is, you're driving, and you start thinking about something that your coworker said to you like 3 days ago. And you're thinking, this person said this and this to me. I wonder what they meant. You're thinking, I think they meant something negative. I think they meant something negative. It's not the first time they said that. They said it before. And you find yourself getting angry, yourself getting resentful and angry, and you're gripping the steering wheel. And you're in your car, and you're getting upset at something somebody said to you a few days ago. And you have all these reasons in your head to be very mad, to be very upset. You just practiced meditation. You thought of something to the point where it created an emotion in your heart. You weren't feeling any anger. You weren't feeling stressed. And now you're feeling stressed. And where did it come from? Your mind. Now, I'm not suggesting that's a healthy meditation. Don't do that. Don't try this at home or in the car. But the point is that unwittingly, we all have practiced or experienced, let's just say experienced, the idea of meditation. Because again, meditation is simply this, according to Jewish thought, is thinking about something, focusing on an idea or on a theme to the point that it creates an emotional response. One of the important things in Jewish, in Kabbalah and Hasidic philosophy is that we have control over our minds and therefore control over our hearts. We have the ability to choose what we're going to think about at any given moment. Here's the problem. Problem is that we're being trained, our brains are being trained to relinquish control of what we're thinking about. I'll give you an example. You're holding your phone and you're scrolling through Reels, right? If you know what Reels are, you know what I'm talking about, right? TikTok or Instagram, you're scrolling through a feed and you're just, what do you have to tell me? What should I think about now, right? You're just scrolling through, waiting for someone to tell you what to think about. That is antithetical to Judaism. Judaism says, don't let someone else tell you what to think about. You choose what you're going to think about. Like, what do you want to think about? So we find ourselves sometimes, in a bad mood. We might be sad. We might be angry. We might be stressed, right? And we don't know why. I would say oftentimes, or more often than not, we have to ask ourselves a simple question. What have we been thinking about lately? Or what have we put in front of our minds or in front of our eyes? What do we focus? Like if the first thing we do in the morning is take a look at the news, and the news tells us about this tragedy and this disaster and that disaster and this problem and that problem, and then we're stressed And then we wonder, why are we stressed? I mean, and I'm not saying to be ignorant to what's going on in the world. I'm just saying that it kind of makes sense that if we put all of these triggers in front of us, and that's what we're thinking about, that our hearts are going to respond, because that's the way we're wired. We are wired that our heart doesn't come out of nowhere. Our heart responds to what our mind is thinking about, what our mind is focusing on. So therefore, practicing what I would call conscious meditation. What I mean by that is where you, maybe the better word is deliberate meditation, where you deliberately choose what you are going to think about. Don't let someone else tell you what to think about. Don't let the news tell you what to think about. Don't let Instagram or whatever tell you what to think about. You choose what you want to think about. Put something that's positive, healthy, however you define that. Put that in front of your eyes. Look at it, watch it, read it, study it, think about it, and then allow your heart to follow suit, and then to feel something positive from that, from what you're looking at, from what you're thinking about. That's what conscious or deliberate meditation, Jewish meditation is. It's about reading the right things, studying the right things. When I say the right things, healthy things, positive things, uplifting things, empowering things, and then allowing the heart to naturally follow suit. It's a very powerful experience. Let me check in for a second. Does this make sense? Yes? Don't let your mind be hijacked by someone else's agenda, and then you're taken for a ride and you're feeling things that you don't want to feel. Don't allow yourself to be victimized like that. Take control, and the control begins right here, right here. If we start our day with being bombarded by all of this depressing stuff, what do we expect? I mean, it would be crazy to think that there would be a different outcome than not feeling good. I mean, it's like, imagine a farmer plants, a gardener, you plant tomato seeds, and tomatoes grow, and you're wondering, where are the cucumbers? Like, I don't understand. You tell your wife, I don't understand. Where are the cucumbers? Well, what'd you plant? What'd you put in? You get out what you put in. So the question is, what do we put in? Our mind is our most precious resource. Literally, it's the most precious thing we have. The question is, what are we putting in? Or are we not putting in anything? We're just keeping an open, with computers, you don't want like open ports and viruses getting, you want to have some semblance of control over what comes in. Our minds, we should treat our minds with the respect that it deserves, with the sacredness that it deserves. And our minds deserve that what we put in, what we focus on, should be healthy things that are empowering, uplifting, healthy, inspiring, and then we'll feel differently. Yes? Makes sense? This is the core of Jewish meditation. Jewish meditation is to think about something positive, uplifting, inspiring, whatever, and then to feel something about it. This is actually the foundation of Jewish prayer, which we spoke about last week. The foundation of tefillah, the foundation of prayer, is that it is preceded by some form of meditation, Jewish meditation. By the way, just to contrast, because I forgot to contrast it. To contrast the forms of meditation, you'll hear in Eastern meditation, you'll hear the concept of clearing the mind. You ever hear that expression, clearing the mind? There's value to clearing the mind. In fact, there is a Jewish form of clearing the mind as well. It's called hitbodedut, which we're not going to get into today. We're going to talk about hitbonenut, which is a different form. Yeah. Sure, absolutely. Pleasure. But here's the big idea. The big idea is that Jewish meditation, by and large, is not about clearing the mind. It's about being conscious and being deliberate and being intentional about what we put into the mind. It's not about emptying the mind. It's about focusing with our mind, using our mind to focus on the things that will produce a positive, desirable result in the heart, which, by the way, if you're thinking about something and you're feeling that thing, the likelihood of you acting on it is way amplified. So if you're thinking something positive and you're feeling something positive, you're probably going to do something positive, as opposed to thinking negative, feeling negative, and nonetheless fighting against the odds and doing something positive. Why stack the odds against yourself? Line it up, mind, heart, action, line it up where it's intuitive, where it makes sense, as opposed to where it should be, as opposed to counterintuitive. But anyway, getting back to Jewish meditation, there are three traditionally, at least in the mystical community, there are three preparations for davening, for prayer, for tefillah in the morning. Number one, traditionally men will go to the mikvah, the ritual bath. For everybody, giving tzedakah, charity. And number three is meditation. Meditation doesn't happen sitting on a rock and emptying the mind. Again, in the Jewish understanding, typically, hitbonenut doesn't happen that way. It happens with taking a text, taking something of Torah, studying it, thinking about it, contemplating it, running through in the mind, running it through in your mind, integrating it, and then to the point where we feel it. That's the idea. Now, it's hard every day, when we have to go to work early, whatever, to really engage in this type of meditation. But certainly Shabbat morning is a time when it's available for everyone, before davening, before prayer, to study a little bit, to study a little Torah, a little Hasidic philosophy, etc., a little Kabbalah, and to get our minds thinking about something greater than ourselves. Last week, we spent a lot of time exploring the ladder of prayer and how the Siddur, the prayer book, is designed to take us from one place to another place, to another place, to another place in our thoughts and in our feelings. But again, precipitating that, to have something that our mind is filled with, thinking about the beauty of the world and the greatness of Hashem and how divine energy is ever present. Just some meditative ideas. Divine energy is ever present. How all of creation is constantly being vivified every moment by God. Nothing exists on its own. It's kind of like a projection, like a projector. Imagine you go to a movie. Remember before COVID, people went to movies? Where you go to the theater. This is also around the time of Blockbuster, I think. They had movie theaters, right? Back in the day, there were movie theaters. Huh? I'm Zeiten, like once upon a time. Movie theaters. You go to a movie theater, it's dark, and they have from the back, they have a projector, right? A nice projector. Am I right? Yeah. It's not a digital, it's a projector. Projector. What happens if you pull the plug on the projector? What happens? You want a refund at that point. It's like everyone's going to start throwing their popcorn. It's like, what is this? I came here to see a movie. What kind of project? You pull out the plug is pulled. The story about the husband who's watching football on Sunday. It's a Sunday today, so today's it's appropriate joke. So he's watching soccer. Oh, soccer! You heard about the journalist who passed away?
Yeah, terrible.
What a tragedy!
He was 48. Gary Wall,
yeah. He's a prominent American soccer, like the most prominent American soccer journalist, just died yesterday
in Qatar.
In Qatar. Well, there's a lot of conspiracy. He's the first one who wore a rainbow shirt and got AIDS. There's a lot of. I don't want to fuel any conspiracies. Yeah. No. We're gonna. Yeah. No, you're right. No, let's stay positive. So, now you know. Right? Yeah. So, but how do we get to?
We're talking about putting the flag.
Oh, pulling the plug. Yeah, soccer, football. Yeah. So this guy, his husband's watching football, and he's watching like a commercial about there's all these medical pharmaceutical things. He says to his wife, "Look, if I ever get into," he's been watching football for like 4 hours. He's like, "If I ever get into a vegetative state, please be sure to pull the plug." His wife goes over to the TV.
That was football, wasn't soccer.
That was, there you go. Pleasure. Good to see you. So here's the big idea. The big idea is that when you have the projector,
I should do that at home.
have, right? I don't take any responsibility.
Somebody click the button.
Oh, no, the power of the TV went out, just the TV.
Yeah.
So,
Your husband has you want to get this idea?
Oh my
oh,
God.
no, do not blame the rabbi. I do not take any responsibility. All right, so anyway, back to the story. So you have the projector in the back of the theater. You pull the plug on the projector, and the entire film is gone. It's over a bottle, as they say. It's gone. It's dead. It's finished. There's no movie. There's no character. There's no dialogue. Everything's over. Why? Because the whole image, the whole world that was being created was just a projection. And at every moment, there has to be an infusion of more light to project it into reality, or into that supposed reality. If at any moment it goes dark, the whole thing goes. It's kind of like light in this room. You can keep this light on for 24 hours. The moment you turn it off, you know what happens? The room goes dark. What? Didn't save up any light? No, because the room was never transformed. The room was never made light. The light was just from the light. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? The room never became actually transformed into a light space. The light that we see is only the light of the light. The moment that light's out, there's no light anymore. That's the difference between light and air conditioning. You turn off the air conditioner, it still stays cool for a little bit, right? But you turn off the light, it's done, it's finished. Immediately, instantaneously, there's no light. And so the mystics tell us that Hashem creates the world, God creates the world in a similar way, where this life that this world and the life and the energy and our ability to be and to breathe and to do things is only because God's light is shining constantly. God's energy and power is giving us life and light, constantly vivifying us in the present, every moment, animating us, projecting us into existence. If at any moment, God forbid, that animation or that projection would stop, it would be over. It's not like God's hit play once upon a time and then everything is just alive. We take life for granted. We take this life, reality, world, universe, we take it for granted. We assume that it'll be here because it was here. That's a crazy assumption. There's no assumption in life, not just because life is fragile, but because God is recreating the world at every single moment, a new projection, a new flicker of light. It's almost like biologically how you have like a pulse, like a heartbeat that constantly, pushes the blood, circulates the blood, pumps the blood, right? It's this constant flow of energy into the world, suffusing it with light and energy. And so these are some ideas. I just gave you some meditations to think about. We could think about these anytime, but certainly we can also think about these before we daven in the morning, before we pray, so that our prayer is not just reading words on a page, but that they are filled with a deeper idea, meditative thought. And yet, what's interesting about Jewish meditation and prayer is that the meditation without the prayer is still lacking. In other words, if we just think of these ideas in our head, and we're closing our eyes and we're thinking about the world and its beauty and God and nature and light and projection and the heartbeat of existence, and we think about all these things and we don't do anything with it, we just keep it in our heads, it is much less powerful than when we follow that with opening up a prayer book and reading the words and saying verbalizing those ideas in the form of prayer. It's the verbalization that really brings home all of these concepts. And this takes us into what we are going to study inside this morning. We're going to study a few paragraphs inside, and I will tell you off the bat, what we're going to do inside is talk about the power of verbalization, the power of articulation, the power of speech. When we think of something in our head, no matter how grand it is, it pales in comparison to when we actually speak it and project it into the world through our words. Please take and pass. Please take and pass. We're going to read for a few minutes. No worries. No worries. Yes, absolutely. Let's take and pass. Okay. I will pull this up on the screen. We are going to begin middle of toward the top of 33, where it says speech and love. Because not only do our words magnify our ideas, but they also magnify our emotions. And anyone who's ever expressed an emotion verbally knows this to be true. So where it says speech and love, and by the way, speaking of love, I love these ideas. I love this concept. I love these teachings. And it's really transformative to recognize the power of our words on us, let alone on others. So let's read where it says speech and love again. 30, first page right here, 33, that second paragraph. This ability of speech, in other words, the ability of that speech has to amplify things, appears in the realm of emotions as well. For instance, when one speaks words of love, which means that the speech is being informed by the soul's attribute of love, in other words, the emotion of love, we see that speaking intensifies the love. So let me just take a quick moment to explain this. Imagine you're feeling love for someone in your heart, but then you begin telling them how much you love them. You know what's going to happen? You're going to feel the love even more than you felt it before you started speaking. Why? Well, we'll get to the why soon. But it's because the words themselves, when you speak about it, it amplifies the emotion. This is because, let's continue inside, speaking of the love causes it to illuminate intensely within the person, who then grows very passionate with love and affection for the object of his love or her love. Let's continue with speech and anger. And this now goes into, I would say, a negative space, right? The same is true of severity and anger. Speech fuels the passion of anger and rage immensely. So again, let me just explain. Imagine you're feeling angry and you start speaking about that anger. You know what's going to happen? You're going to get more angry. That's the way it works. No matter how angry you felt, once you get a chance to speak it out, you're going to get more angry. You're going to get more enraged. Thus, Reishit Chachma, which is a work of Kabbalah and personal refinement, Reishit Chachma advises silence as an antidote to anger, since speech increases the passion of the anger immensely. Silence, on the other hand, has the opposite effect. It cools the passion of rage. So if somebody is struggling with anger, Reishit Chachma says something that I think we all know intuitively, but explains it according to Kabbalah. Reishit Chachma says, you know what? If you're angry and you want to cool down, don't speak about it right now. Like, take it easy. Take it easy. Don't speak about it. You know what they say? Count to 10,000, right? It's like, take a moment, step out of the room, take it, cool down, and then you can have a conversation about it. If you ever want to have a productive conversation, well, that's like a broad statement. Typically, if you want to have a productive conversation about something, right, about something that's bothering you, it's better to have the conversation when you're not feeling the intensity of the bother. Because you know what? In that moment of intensity, it may come out accusatory, angry, right, rageful. They come out ugly as opposed to productive. You want to have a productive conversation? It's usually one example that I once heard that I love. You fix a leaky roof when it's not raining, right? Right? You fix a leaky roof when it's not raining. When it's all chaotic, it's not the right time to fix the leaky roof. Wait till it's calm. Wait till it's dried out. Now, then you ask the question, well, if it's dried out, why am I fixing the roof? Because you know that it's going to rain again. The same thing is true. You know, you have to speak with someone about an issue, but don't speak when the issue is like at its peak. Take it easy. Take a break. Step out of the situation. Cool down, and then you'll deal with it. Why deal with it if you're cool down? Because you know it's going to happen again. So you want to preempt it from blowing up again. The point is, it's a really powerful personal teaching from Reishit Chachma. Silence is the antidote to anger. By the way, it doesn't mean we should never speak of things that are bothering us. He's not saying to never feel emotions, be a robot. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that if you want to know how to cool down from an angry place, step one, stop speaking about it. Don't speak so much, right? It's like speech is the oxygen for the emotions. All right, let's continue. The same is true back inside of all the emotions. If they are not verbalized, their excitement will gradually dissipate until they vanish entirely. When they are verbalized, the opposite occurs. They grow and expand immensely. So here's the key. The verbalization, speech is the amplifier. So if you want to increase an emotion, talk about it. If you want to decrease the emotion, don't talk about it. It's a life hack. You're getting like mystical life hack right here. This is it. You want to increase, you want to like feel more love, speak about it. You want to feel less anger, don't speak about it. Done. Now let's continue. Speech and prayer.
It's interesting, but the silence part though might work for you and calm down your anger. But if you are in an argument with somebody and you become silent, the other party becomes angry. You're not participating in the conversation.
Right. I don't know that we're talking about a two-way thing. I think he's talking about more of like, I'm working through something inside. Yeah. Like I'm working through my feelings inside. So I don't know. See, the thing is like this. I don't think he's saying when to do this or when to do that. He's just giving you the knowledge of how this works internally. You know, you feel something inside. When you put your feeling into words, it's going to enhance it. It's going to amp it up. If you don't put it into words, it'll eventually cool off. When to do this or when to do that, then you have to have seichel. You have to be wise to know which tactic or which approach to take. So, it's if you know the other person is going to get triggered by not saying anything, then yeah, you got to participate in that and to some extent. But in general, speaking is an amplifier. All right, now let's go to speech and prayer. And this is where we get to some very interesting daily work. Likewise, in the service of prayer, in which expressing the letters and words of the prayers verbally is primary. So he says something that I think is very important, and that is when it comes to prayer, the most important key is verbalizing the prayers, not just looking at the words and meditating on the ideas and the themes. It's not about reading it with our eyes. It's actually about verbalizing it. We said last week, if your optimal language is not Hebrew or not ancient Hebrew, Siddur Hebrew, then by all means, say prayers, some of the prayers, all the prayers, whatever it is, in the language of your comfort, of your familiarity, because the idea here is that when we speak these ideas, that they should excite us. They should intensify the things that we're thinking about Hashem and the world and the things that we're feeling for Hashem, etc. So it's all about the verbalization needs to resonate. And of course, the resonance is, everyone knows how they resonate. And language is a key point. Now let's continue. Now the utterance of the prayers must be accompanied by meditation. That was today's theme, right? You can't just jump into prayer without having a meditation, because then, when you have meditation first with the actual uttering of the words, the light of the prayers is felt in one's soul more than through meditation alone. So first meditate, and then say the words of prayer, and then the ideas that you meditated on will be shining much more brightly than when they were just stuck in your head. In other words, when a person meditates upon godly concepts during prayer, for example, during Pesukei de Zimra, that's the first part of davening, he contemplates the topic of the creation of the world, both the wonders of the creation of the world themselves, and the method in which they are conducted by God's guiding hand. In other words, what I mentioned before, the fact that God not only created once upon a time, but is continuously guiding all of creation. And the song and praise of all the creations, that's the first meditation and prayer. And then during the blessings recited before the Shema, the person contemplates the song, praise, and selflessness of the angels. And during the Shema, the person contemplates the subject of God's oneness as it appears from God's perspective and as it appears from man's perspective. By meditating with deep contemplation, the godly light shines within his soul and causes him to be inspired with love and awe. So the point is like this. If you read with your eyes, if you read the prayer book and you look at all the beautiful prayers, and again, whatever language makes sense to you, if you read those prayers, they're beautiful. and they're touching, and you become inspired inside. And it's amazing. The world is beautiful. Hashem creates the world. The angels are saying, Kadosh, Kadosh, holy, holy, holy. The angels are in awe of Hashem. We speak about the oneness of God, the oneness of all, the uniformity, the oneness of all being. And you think about all that stuff, and that's amazing. However, what happens when we say those words? Next level. Let's continue. Now we see that when he later utters the words of prayer that embody the above meditation and concepts, the actual articulation of the words causes the godly light to shine within him far more than it does during the meditation that precedes it. In other words, you could have thought about the same ideas before you prayed, but when you pray, when you daven, and you actually say the words of tefillah, of prayer, the actual articulation of the words really brings out the meditation in just an incredible way. He becomes very animated, and his fervor, the emotion, far exceeds the previous excitement produced by his meditation and intellectual understanding alone. In other words, speech causes the essence and the depth of the godly light to shine within him, a light that is not revealed through his previous meditation and comprehension. So the point is like this: living in our heads is great. It's a great place to be, assuming it's a good place, assuming it's healthy, right? So we're living in our heads, but when we verbalize what's in our heads, that's what really allows it to amplify and to magnify. Obviously, he says, let's continue inside. The speech of prayer must be prefaced by meditation and intellectual comprehension, since without this, his letters and words are lifeless. If somebody opens up a prayer book and starts reading the words, right? It's lifeless prayer. It's just reciting a bunch of words, right? So you need to have something in your mind and heart. You need to be thinking about something. But after meditation, the actual uttering of the words causes far more light to shine within him than through his previous meditation. Furthermore, the light is engraved. I love this. The light is engraved in and perceived by his soul in a much greater way. It has a bigger impact on you when you say the words. The truth is, he continues, the truth is that merely saying the words of prayer, even without prior meditation and extended contemplation of godliness, with page 35, with but a brief meditation upon the simple meaning of the words, especially when one knows and understands some deeper significance to them, elicits the radiance of a light that is far greater than the light that is elicited through meditation and comprehension of godliness in thought without speech. That's a very long sentence, but I'll summarize. He says, basically, even if you didn't do meditation at all, any meditation, and you just said the words, that actually is going to be a potentially more transformative experience than meditation alone. So if we were to rank experiences, right? Meditation versus verbal prayer. He says verbal prayer is actually greater than meditation. However, the ultimate is to first meditate, then verbalize. That's the ultimate experience. So let's not talk about who's the runner-up, who gets the silver and the bronze. Let's talk about the gold now for a moment. The gold standard is today's class. You start off with meditation, knowing that the mind controls the heart, which means that what I think about is going to get me excited. And then when I articulate it in prayer, it brings everything home. It magnifies the ideas, magnifies the emotions, and makes the whole experience that much more integrated, has a deeper impact, literal impact on my life and my day afterwards. By the way, I think all of us, maybe when we're young, we don't think about these things, but when we get a little bit older, we all know how important it is to have a healthy life-work balance, right? It's really important to not have, really any part of our life overwhelming any other part. So, we have to go to work, have to earn money, obviously have to make a living, but at the same time, what about our relationships? What about our spiritual, what about our soul, right? So it's all about finding that balance. Prayer in the morning is such a great way to start the day. It's really a necessary way to start the day because it sets the intention for the day. It's like my day is not just going to be about the rat race. It's not just going to be about survival. It's going to be about meaningful survival, which we call life. It's not just about existence. It's about living. And that's how we start the day. To try to pull this off in the middle of the day is to be working against inertia. It's like against gravity. It's like it's if the train has left the station, you're trying to like pull it back. It's almost too hard, right? We have to grab our own attention in the beginning of the day, because otherwise we're too distracted. Imagine, we start our day and we eat something and we go to work, and then like 12 o'clock, we're like, oh wait, let's get some meaning in the day. It's that's good, by the way. That's good also. But it's really helpful to start the day, even if it's 5 minutes, by the way. It doesn't have to be an hour. It's qualitative, not quantitative. If you get 5 minutes of quality centeredness and intentionality and spiritual clarity and saying a few prayers, if you give yourself 5-10 minutes in the morning, that is transformative for the rest of the day, because the rest of the day follows that lead. You've set a lead where you realize and you've expressed verbally that the world is much more than we see, that reality is much more than what appears to the eye, that truth far transcends the here and now, and that changes everything. All right, let's continue. Second paragraph in 35. Although such prayer, in other words, without meditation, does not compare to saying the words after extended meditation, in which case saying the words causes the essential light to shine in a more revealed way, whereas when one says the words without prior meditation, but merely with an understanding of their simple meaning alone, the light does not shine as apparently. Nevertheless, the general quality of this light of verbalization, verbal prayer, surpasses that of the light and revelation elucidated by understanding and meditation. So anyway, he's ranking verbalization versus meditation. But again, I don't think it's about, I don't want to get caught in that detail. It's not about which one is better. The idea here is that when they're coupled together, when they're matched together, when we have a little bit of meditation and then some verbalization of the meditation, that is so much more powerful. There is a parallel also in Eastern meditation, to my understanding. There are mantras. Yes, there are mantras in Eastern meditation. Even in yoga, there's things that are said. There is power in when it comes to meditation, not just keeping it in the head, but also movement and verbalization. Or I would say the other way around, verbalization and movement. And we have that in our tradition also. We meditate first, then we verbalize in prayer, and then we meditate by movement, through movement in the mitzvot that we do. Positive actions. That's the physical movement of meditation. It's meditation by movement, by action. Let's do a little bit more. And the goal is to get to 36, and then we're going to close it out. We're going to give ourselves 4 more minutes to 11:30. Okay, here we go. The Voice. They should really make a reality show or something, or a contest called The Voice. Someone should get on that. Someone should get on that. Maybe somebody call NBC. I know, right? Someone should call NBC. All right, The Voice. You know what would be very cool though? Imagine if they had like people, maybe celebrities, put on a mask and sing, and then you wouldn't know who they were until the big reveal. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. Okay, back inside. The Voice. Indeed, he says, the more detectable the speech, in other words, when the words of prayer are said forcefully, the more intensely does the godly light shine within the soul. In other words, when you're praying aloud and you're praying with, I don't know what the right word is, intensity, verbal intensity, it actually makes the experience that much more rich. And listen to what he says here. A proof for this can be derived from the ruling of the Code of Jewish Law, which is allowing one to pray out loud on Rosh Hashanah. Let me explain what that means, pray out loud. I always pray out loud. You know the Amidah? Many call the Amidah the silent Amidah. It's really not supposed to be silent meditation. It's really not silent. We're meant to say it so that we hear it, but no one else hears it. So it's basically whispered. Instead of praying like this with a regular talking voice, we pray like this. So that's the difference between the Amidah and the rest of the prayers. However, on Rosh Hashanah, the Code of Jewish Law says, you know what you can do? You can pray out loud. like a normal speaking voice. The Amida. Why? Let's continue. In other words, although one must pray quietly, this is only the Amida. One must pray quietly or relatively quietly through the year. And one who prays out loud is regarded as a weak believer. The Talmud says that someone who says the Amida loud throughout the rest of the year is like someone who says, I don't think God can hear me. Remember that Verizon commercial? Can you hear me now? Right? Remember that? Like, can you hear me now, God? I'm speaking really loud. I really could use all these, right? So if somebody says the Amida out loud throughout the year, we say, what, you don't think God can hear your quiet prayer? Right? God can hear your whispers also. Nonetheless, one is allowed to pray out loud on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Why? So as to rouse one's concentration. In other words, what we tell a person is usually don't be so presumptuous to think God can't hear you. God can hear you and make this a deep experience. But on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where the concentration is so important, it's so important to the kavanah, the meditation concentration is so important. So we tell a person, you know what, pray loud. Indeed, it is known that the sound of one's voice stimulates concentration. That's powerful. The sound of one's voice stimulates concentration, enhances kavanah, enhances the intentionality. Very interesting. It is also known that the voice creates the substance of the body of the letters, as explained in Gerta Kodesh, and that is what stimulates the concentration. In other words, it's the voice that creates the guf, the body of the letters of articulation, and that is what stimulates the concentration. Now, what is meant here, what is meant here by concentration is not the intellectual concentration of the brain. For what connection might the sound produced by the breath of the heart share with the understanding of the intellect, when in fact it does not derive from there? In other words, imagine you're saying words that are coming from your lungs, your air is being emitted, your breath is being emitted into your voice box. I don't know, I'm not all I remember is the elbows connect to your shoulder, whatever I can't even get that straight. Whatever, however that went. But there's breath that comes through, I guess, is it the larynx? Did I get this right? The voice box, yeah, and it emanates, and then and then you shape it, you shape shift it with your teeth and your tongue and your lips and your throat and your palate, all these different spaces of the mouth, kind of fruit ninja. Did we speak about this a few weeks ago? Kind of fruit ninjas, the sound, right? Because you starts off with the same sound, but then as it comes through, you slice and dice it, and it comes out different letters, which form words, which form sentences, and form ideas. By the way, the whole thing is crazy. The whole thing is the fact that you understand what I'm saying. It's the whole language and speech it's meshuggah. The whole thing is crazy. It's crazy, right? You're producing. I could go right. I could just do one sound, but no. You slice and dice it, and because you slice and dice it in a certain way, and someone knows what that slicing and dicing means, they can then kind of reverse engineer what's in your head. That's crazy. I can tell you you can know in your head what's in my head through this process. It is so wild. We take it for granted. We don't even think about it. It is so phenomenally wild. Okay, back to the story. So he says, what happens is you have ideas in your head and then you verbalize it. And he says, when you verbalize it, now you understand it better. It doesn't make any sense. Rather, he says, the primary meaning of this concentration is concentration of the heart, meaning the desire of the heart, which transcends the intellectual concentration that stems from the understanding of the intellect. When you verbalize prayer, when you verbalize really anything, what happens is there's an intensification that happens in the heart, in the emotions, in the intensity of the experience. And that also then has an effect on the intellect. And this concentration is greatly roused by the sound produced by the breath of the heart emitting the substance of the letters of speech. Remember, the body of the letters is produced by the voice that comes out. So what's the point? The point of all of this is that meditation and concentration is important. And what enhances all of that is the experience of verbalizing the prayers. So when you have an idea and you teach it to someone else, you verbalize it, you understand it better. When you have an emotion and you verbalize it, you feel it stronger. When you have a divine idea in prayer that you've been meditating on, the idea that God is ever present and the world is constantly being recreated. Every moment the world is regenerating. God is regenerating the world. And that's an idea that is just absolutely transformative. But more than just an idea, you then verbalize it as you pray. You say the words and you say them out loud. You feel it. You connect with it in such a great way where you literally feel it in your body. You feel it in your soul. You feel it in your heart. You feel it in your mind. And this sets up the stage. This sets the stage for next week. Because next week, we're going to ask the big question that we've been headed to, which is, why does speech have this power? We know it does. Anyone who's ever taught anything to anyone knows that when you teach something to someone else, you understand it better. There's something, anyone who's ever expressed their love or their anger knows that when you spoke about it, you felt it more. The question is, wherein lies the power of speech? What is that magic behind the words, behind this magical process of taking breath and the voice box and whatever it is, and then slicing and dicing and then putting it out there? What is the power in that experience of magnifying ideas, magnifying emotions, and aiding concentration? What is it about speech that is so magical? Wherein does its power? Where does its power lie? That we'll get to next week. The power of speech. Join me then. Same bad time, same bad channel. Thank you very much for joining me today. Questions or comments? Pleasure. Great to see you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Sometime in the future, could you talk about the necessity of rituals?
Yes. I touched on it a little today. The idea of movement, of kind of training our body into like
Things that we do in Judaism.
Yeah.
Tefillah,
Sure. Yeah, all the rituals. Good. Sorry?
Continue using those next week?
Yeah, we're going to continue using these. Yeah, you can give back or you can hold on to them. Either way is good. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll put that on the radar to speak about. By the way, just to create a marker for all of us, we are on page 36 where it says the rationale. Norm, you wanted to say something? Yes. Yeah, I love it. And the Talmud also says that I forget which rabbi it was. He said, I learned a lot from my teachers. I learned even more from my colleagues, but from my students, I learned the most, right? And it's because in that process of needing to articulate it and sharing it and verbalizing it, the clarity is magnified just exponentially. You know this. Everyone knows this, right? This is our experience in life. Sharing is not only caring, sharing is uplifting, is transformative.
Well, when you teach, that student may say something back to you that illuminates everything.
Yeah. The power of the question also. The power of the question, because we all have a limited way in which we understand something. There's the way we understand it, and it's untested in our own heads. It's very hard to catch yourself by surprise. That's why you can't tickle yourself, because you're not surprised. Whereas a good question challenges you and makes you kind of rethink everything, which is good. See, we're afraid of questions. I don't know, I'm saying people don't want to be challenged. Yeah, people don't want to be challenged nowadays. And it's like, challenge is the best thing. Give me challenge or give me bagels. I don't know, something like that.
That's so great. Kids ask questions.
Yes. The best thing in the world is to teach younger people. Why? Because they don't take what you take for granted. They don't start with the same assumptions. And you make a statement and they're like, how do you know that? And you're like, oh, that's a really good point. Let me rethink this. Let me try to recalibrate. And how did I get there? Am I even right? Do I need to shift premises?
Our education system is teaching kids that just because they're born they're valuable, and they're learning that you don't have to really accomplish anything.
Right.
The fact that you're here means that you've done all you have to do.
Right.
There you go.
Well, I mean, these balloons, this beautiful decor over here is, participation trophies right here. This is just for being here. You get these. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I'm just fooling around.
I didn't even see that.
Sure. Yeah, it's beautiful. I was just joking. These are really. Adam, do you have a question? I see in the chat box. It looks like I missed. Oh, which book is this? Okay, here we go. This is called, it's got 3 titles, it looks like. This is called Divine Speech, Force and Create. Divine Speech, Forces in Creation, and the Power of Returning. It's 3 discourses in one. It's the first 3 discourses of the year 56, 59, 90, 1898. A series of discourses from the 5th Rebbe. This is what it looks like. It's available on probably Amazon and kehot.com, KEHOT.com. All right. Great to see you guys. Dr. David, Dr. Maxie, Sarah, Mariana, Adam. So great. So great to see all you guys. All right. Shavua Tov. And hopefully we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye, everybody.